At one point, President Trump accused Ukraine of starting the war. We don't even need to quote the Time magazine article again. And now he's calling Putin BS. You have seen up close President Trump's sympathies towards Putin over the years. Do you believe that he has fundamentally shifted his view on the Russian president, or could Trump be one happy phone call away from blaming Zelensky again?
Well, my hope is that the president's starting to recognize that Vladimir Putin doesn't want peace. Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine. And again and again, President Zelensky, who I came to know during my time as vice president, has made it clear he's prepared for a ceasefire. He's prepared to negotiate a lasting peace in the region. While we saw again just last night, a barrage of merciless attacks on civilian populations, and I welcome the president's decision to reverse a decision somewhere out of the Pentagon that suspended aid to Ukraine. You look back at our administration, Kate, and we were the first administration to provide lethal aid to Ukraine. Remember, Barack Obama only provided military meals and blankets. We came in and gave them the kind of Stinger missiles and resources that I think prevented Vladimir Putin from invading Ukraine during our 4 years in office. And then it literally in the aftermath of the Biden administration's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, I think Putin was emboldened. He rolled across the border. He's made no secret of his ambitions. And while I had concerns and expressed them in those first 100 days about the president's kind of ongoing hope and desire for a negotiated settlement, I welcome his decisions this week and his rhetoric. And I think what may have changed is that some of the isolationist voices in and around this administration that recently condemned the president's correct and courageous decision to launch a military assault against Iran. I think they may have lost some of their footing with the president. I mean, by leveling criticism in our effort to ensure that Iran could never obtain a usable nuclear weapon, I think some of those isolationist voices may have literally lost some credibility with the president. But whatever the cause, I welcome it, because I do believe the time has come for us to renew our military support for Ukraine, make it clear that we're going to continue to provide that support along with our European allies until a just and lasting peace is achieved. I also am hopeful that Senator Thune will bring the new Russia sanction bill to the floor of the Senate next week.
There are issues with two of those things, but with both of those things, there are issues right now. And I saw you almost shake your head in disbelief at what the reporting has been, which is today we learned that U.S. weapons shipments are starting back up to Ukraine.
Right.
But this comes after the reporting is that the Pentagon paused shipments on some weapons, signed off on by the Secretary of Defense, without the knowledge, without informing the President of the United States. The idea that a decision that big was made without getting the approval of or even informing the President of the United States, does that make any sense to you?
Well, look, when you've served at the level I've served at, it's a big government, and a lot of people in your agencies and in departments are making decisions all the time, but that one was troubling to me. And my bet is it's very troubling to the president. My expectation is that he'll get to the bottom of it. He will find out who initiated that decision. But the most important thing is that he reversed it and made it clear in a phone call with President Zelensky last Friday that the support's going to continue to come. Now, I will say, and I say respectfully to the president, if he's looking on, this isn't just about defensive weapons.
Right.
We've got to continue to provide President Zelensky and the Ukrainian military with the offensive capability, as well as the kind of support against aerial assaults that'll allow them to achieve a real peace.
Sorry, this isn't the first problem at the Pentagon that has come out under the leadership of Pete Hegseth. Tom Tillis is suggesting he's questioning his support for his confirmation. Do you think Pete Hegseth is up for this job?
Yeah, I saw Senator Tillis's criticism, and I don't think it's fair. Okay. Look, I've known Pete Hegseth a long time. Mm-hmm. He's someone who's worn the uniform. As you know, I've got a couple in our immediate family that are currently serving in the armed forces of this country. And I got to tell you, I'm very encouraged overall with the president's leadership and his team at the Pentagon. I think General Kane had demonstrated his extraordinary capabilities with the success of that mission over Iran. Our airmen did an incredible job after the president made that courageous decision to launch U.S. forces. I think the launching efforts earlier this year that caused the Houthis to stand down on what had been years of attacks against U.S. military vessels in the region. And probably the most hopeful thing, I would say, and I credit first the president, but also the Secretary of Defense and his entire team, is recruitment is up. I mean, we had fallen behind in every branch in the service in meeting recruitment goals at the end of the Biden administration. And now I'm told that we're exceeding goals in every branch of our armed forces. And so all of that is welcome news, positive.
You also mentioned sanctions. Thune's talking about bringing it forward, but has said he's not going to bring forward this big sanctions bill pushed by Graham and Blumenthal, and has 80 co-sponsors. I mean, nothing has 80 co-sponsors in this kind of bipartisanship anymore in Washington. Mm-hmm. But he won't do it unless Trump signs off. And Trump is not a yes yet. Is there any good reason in your mind to not be moving forward with this sanctions bill right away?
Well, my hope is the president make it clear that he wants that bill on his desk.
He keeps saying, yes, maybe, no, I don't need it yet. He suggested to advisors he thinks it won't deter.
Yeah, but, you know,
Putin.
Kate, I spoke Trump fluently for 4 years.
So decipher, please.
So when I saw him the other day say that he's strongly looking at it, I know what that means. And I saw Senator Graham actually put out on social media that he talked to the president. And the president wanted them to move the bill.
So you think it means?
Well, my hope is that the president will understand the value of the Senate acting, and they can put that on his desk, and it has broad waiver authority in it. But I literally think that the very presence of those new sanctions, especially the secondary sanctions that are included, that are essentially going to go against countries that are subsidizing that war effort.
Why pump the brakes?
Well, I think and hope the president will see the value of Vladimir Putin seeing those sanctions on his desk, available for a signature. But the most important thing is that we continue to make it very clear that we're not going to tolerate Vladimir Putin redrawing international lines by force. He didn't do it in our 4 years. He had done it. It's important to remember Russian forces had crossed a border in Europe broadly under the Bush administration, under the Obama administration in Crimea, and of course under the Biden administration. But under our administration, we built up our military. We unleashed our armed forces to take down the ISIS caliphate. We even took down the leader of the Iran Revolutionary Guard, Qasem Soleimani. We sent cruise missiles into Syria not once but twice. I think Vladimir Putin saw us supporting Ukraine with lethal aid. I think he saw us willing to use force to defend our interests and our allies, and he stood down. And the pathway today to peace in the region, in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in the Asia Pacific, is American strength.
You add this together with just what you said and the strikes on Iran, and you have isolationists, as you tell, the isolationist wing of get out of every foreign conflict. You've been speaking out against it, but do you, against that growing part of the Republican Party, do you see Donald Trump as a hawk or an isolationist?
President Trump is not an isolationist.
And now, what do you say to the isolationist wing of the party that says he is?
I said
and he
this,
ran on it.
I said this in a major address in Washington last fall, that the president I serve with is not an isolationist. His bias is to lead. I think he understands that America is the leader of the free world. One of the reasons our administration demanded that our European allies live up to their commitments, and I'm also very encouraged with the news that our NATO allies are now moving to 5%. Again, that's not the action of an isolationist. That's the action of a president who understands that America's role is to lead the free world. But make no mistake about it, there's a vigorous debate in the Republican Party today by some of the loudest voices around the president that say that America needs to pull back, that we need to pull the shutters in. We need to worry exclusively about what's happening here at home. And while we should always be concerned about what's happening in our country first, our economy, our security, our prosperity, our values, I think for the better part of the last century, the American people have understood that our role is to lead the free world. And one of the things I learned as vice president is if America's not leading the free world's not being led. There's no backup. There's no leading from behind, as Barack Obama said. And so what I saw in the last week was the president kind of, I think, returning to his well-honed instincts and bias for leadership on the world stage, and I welcome it. Well, first, again, let me say just our hearts have just been broken by the stories coming out of Texas. A friend of mine in Texas told me yesterday the Hill Country may be the most beautiful area of that incredible state. And I was so moved last night by reports of a worship service that took place and images of those children singing on the bus when they were leaving the camp.
Gives you chills.
It reminded me in 2017 when that horrific attack at the Sutherland Springs Church, Karen and I flew out and spent time with the families, and we saw the faith, the resilience, and the strength of the people of Texas. And I know they'll get through this, but they know they're not alone. And the American people, we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. But I think the question of FEMA's role is one that probably ought to be debated now going forward. I mean, in my experience, both as a governor and as a vice president, I saw the central role that FEMA played in facilitating state response. I take the Secretary's point, who's been a governor herself, that states lead the response. In Indiana, whether it was hurricanes or flooding or California wildfires or otherwise, that the states do take the lead. But I think that backstop of expertise and personnel and the ability to be on the ground, getting resources directly to the American people to help rebuild their lives is important and should be sustained. I remember after Hurricane Katrina, I was in Congress at the time, and we remember the tragedy around all of that. Congress then made an enormous investment in modernizing FEMA to the point where now FEMA personnel are able to literally stand in your front yard at your home, devastated by whatever conditions, and get your information and immediately process the federal assistance. So it's important we understand the states take the primary role in responding, public safety, rescue, recovery. But I think making sure that the federal government is there speeding those resources to hurting Americans is important and should be continued.
Yesterday, Republican Senator Thom Tillis sat down with my colleague Jake to talk about his decision to not seek re-election, and this came after President Trump had said he was going to essentially primary him after his vote against the tax and spending bill. As part of their conversation, Jake asked the senator what he thinks or says to those who accuse him of being a rhino, which is something you have been called in the past. Let me play Thom Tillis's response.
And the thing that most of these so-called true conservatives have in common, whether they're elected or party leaders, they've never legislated. So they can spare me the amateurish view of how this world works because they don't have a body of work to point to. I do.
You have talked about the way you wrote it, an existential identity crisis now grips the American right. And I saw that and I was thinking of our conversation. I was wondering, when President Trump leaves office, when the Trump era, if you will, ends, do you think that populism, that MAGA element that accuses you, a conservative, of being a rhino, do you think that ends as well?
Well, I think President Trump, as president should, has changed aspects of the agenda of the Republican Party. But I don't think he's changed the Republican Party. You know, I've been traveling around this country over the last 4 years, speaking with everyday Americans and on everything from book tours to my own campaign for president. And you know, what I've heard again and again is the deep commitment that Republican voters have to a strong national defense, American leadership in the world, fiscal responsibility, pro-growth policies, the right to life, and traditional values. There is a populist move within the party that says we should marginalize the right to life, that we should embrace big government programs, that we should pull back from our commitments in the world. But I think that's a minority voice. And you know, as I said in the last segment, seeing the president reaffirm that commitment to American leadership on the world stage.